delighted that you have joined us today. And without any niceties today, I'm going to get right into what we're doing because it's huge. And so there are so many significant things happening in our world that show us how soon the Lord's return could be, that I really want to begin with our Torah portion, which is Behar, Bechukotai. We will start there, and that means at the mountain and my statutes. And this portion begins by describing the importance of the 7-year Shemitah cycle, and then the 7 sevens of years leading to the Jubilee year. So it's amazing. But we're going to go to Daniel after that. And then we're going to look at Daniel and see how the Lord showed him all of history divided into 7-year segments, which is amazing. And all very prophetic, pointing exactly to the place where we are today. So from that point, we're going to see things begin to speed up. Where we are today now, things are speeding up exponentially, and they're speeding up through current events that we're watching happen before our eyes. So what is a Shemitah rest? Does everybody know what that is? It's a command to work the land for 6 years and to harvest it. But the 7th year, you let the land lay. You let it rest, literally. You don't plant and you don't go out and reap as you would normally reap your crops in. You just let it lay there. If it produces voluntarily some fruit or vegetables, you can pick those daily or whenever you need to, but you don't go harvesting. And you share everything on your land, which is a very interesting concept. So let's start with Leviticus 25, 1 through 4. And the Lord spoke to Moses on Mount Sinai, saying, "Speak to the children of Israel and say to them, when you come into the land which I give you, then the land shall keep a Sabbath to the Lord. 6 years you shall sow your field, and 6 years you shall prune your vineyard and gather its fruit. But in the 7th year there shall be a Shabbat, or a solemn rest for the land, a Sabbath to the Lord." And skipping down to verse 6, which I think I did on your notes. "And the Sabbath produce of the land shall be for food for you, for your male and female servants, for your hired man, and the stranger who dwells with you. It will be for your livestock and the beasts that are in your land. All its produce shall be for food." So you can eat anything that grows that year, that voluntarily grows on your land, and so can anybody else. Any person or any animal who happens to wander across your field. If they're hungry, they can eat it too. So you can't fence them out that year. From the food which comes up voluntarily, this is showing that no one owns the land. There is only one owner of the land, and that is the Lord. He is the supreme owner of the land of Israel, nobody else. And so, by leaving his fields untended and unguarded for a year, that Jewish farmer demonstrated that this world is just a corridor leading to the ultimate world. That true life comes when man stops striving for material gain in favor of dedication to spiritual growth. So if there's anything taking away from your spiritual growth, it's good to just put that aside. If those are material things that are keeping you from spiritual growth, put them aside. They're not what's important. So Leviticus 25, 8 and 9 then takes a leap, and it says, "You shall count 7 Sabbaths of years now." So this is a cycle now of 7 years. So after 7 years for yourself, 7 times 7 years, And the time of the 7 Sabbaths of years shall be to you 49 years. Then you shall cause the trumpet of the Jubilee to sound on the 10th day of the 7th month. On the day of atonement, you shall make the trumpet to sound throughout all your land. Notice that we're counting right now. We're on day 41, counting the Omer, right? Yesterday was the 40th day, the day that Yeshua ascended into heaven. That was a big day of the counting of the Omer. So right now we're counting the Omer, and that's a daily count. And we're counting it for 49 days. Then we go to the yearly, when the land gets to rest every 7th year. And then we do the 7-year cycles, which leads us to the Jubilee. Okay, so there's all of these are cycles of 7s. And that's what the Lord is trying to impress upon our mind. And that last cycle of 7 years leads to the Jubilee. He will return in a Jubilee year. And it says, for the Jubilee to be commemorated, the entire Jewish nation needs to be living on their land. Hence, ever since the tribes of Reuben, Gad, and half tribe of Manasseh were exiled, 18 years before the other northern tribes were exiled, the Jubilee was canceled. And so nobody celebrates it right now. This was 130 years before the destruction of the first temple. So it's been a long time since the actual Jubilee has been celebrated. The point is, God has divided time into segments of 7s, and he showed Daniel history with the counting of 7-year cycles. And this is what he showed Daniel. Daniel 9:24 through 27 says, 70 weeks. Now, when you read that, that means these are weeks of years. Okay? So there's 70 weeks of 7 years. It's a hard thing to get in our mind because we separate weeks and years, but it's all one in Hebrew vocabulary. So, 70 weeks are determined upon thy people and upon thy holy city to finish the transgression and to make an end of sins and to make reconciliation for iniquity and to bring in everlasting righteousness and to seal up the vision and prophecy and to anoint the most holy. That covered a lot of history. So he says, know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem unto Messiah the Prince shall be 7 weeks of years, okay? And 62 weeks of years. The street shall be built again and the wall even in troublous times. Okay, and after 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off. That's when the Messiah was crucified, okay? But not for himself. And the people of the prince that shall then come and destroy the city and the sanctuary and the end thereof, this is the Romans, shall be with the flood, and unto the end of the war, desolations are determined. So believe it or not, and I'm not going to go through all of the math today, but that covered everything through Yeshua's death. And then, of course, he resurrected, ascended, and then the Romans came and destroyed Jerusalem and the temple. So it takes us through all of that. These dates were filled exactly when you follow it from the command to rebuild Jerusalem that Artaxerxes gave. So you have to be careful because it wasn't the Cyrus command. It was the Artaxerxes command. Anyway, and verse 27, and he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. Who is he? This is the Antichrist. He's confirming this 7-year covenant. And in the midst of the week, A week is 7 years. What's the middle of a 7-year period? 3.5 years. He shall bring an end to sacrifice and offering. So the temple's going to be rebuilt. They're going to be offering and sacrificing. And on the wing of abominations, he shall make it desolate, even until the consummation, and that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. So here, the point is, the Lord showed Daniel all of history, even to the end of the tribulation, which we're approaching quickly right now. He showed him in periods of 7-year cycles. So it's fascinating. This 70-year prophecy was also linked to the 4 beasts and the statue that he showed to Nebuchadnezzar in the dream. We're going to come to that in a minute, but I'm going to insert this. Also remember that a war began in the very beginning of time, Genesis 3:15, and I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed. And so this is the seed of Satan, your seed, whom the Lord is speaking to, and her seed. He will crush your head and you will strike his heel. All right. The word seed or the word enmity, is derived from ayav. And it's to be hostile or to be an enemy. So the 2 seeds that are being described here are going to be hostile with each other, and they're going to be enemies, okay? But there's more. It's really amazing that the word seed, zara'ah, is the exact same word for the seed of Satan and for the seed of the woman, which means, though Satan is a spiritual entity and an angel, he is going to have a physical seed on the earth that he is going to work through, okay? As will the woman, who is Israel, have a spiritual seed and a physical seed on the earth that she is going to work through, she being Israel, okay? So let's see how this works. Revelation 12:5, she, the woman who is Israel, bore a male child, obviously the Messiah, who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron, and her child was caught up to God and his throne. Okay, so in the Bible, we've seen today that God makes leaps, right? He tells you something and you say, okay, I see that. And then he leaps forward to another time, just like he did here. Here's this Messiah that's going to be born, rule all nations. And then he leaps forward to the time when he's caught up and he sits with God in his ascension. All right, so there's that. That's the child that the seed is going to work through, okay? He's going to work through this Messiah. Revelation 12:4, his tail, the dragon's tail, drew 1/3 of the stars of heaven and threw them onto the earth, and the dragon stood before the woman who was ready to give birth to devour her child as soon as it was born. All right, so can you see that picture? So here we see the serpent, and at the same time, we see he's a picture of Herod, right? Who was the one that was standing there waiting to devour that child when he was born? It was Herod. Guess what? Do you know that Herod is an Edomite? Oh, isn't that amazing? And all through history, the seed of Satan was Edom from Esau. And so here we see it again. The Lord's, this line, it's not broken, it's unbroken. And it's the very line we see today fighting against the Messiah and his return. So Matthew 2:13b says, now when they had departed, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream, saying, arise, take the young child and his mother, flee to Egypt, and stay there until I bring you word. For Herod will seek the young child to destroy him. And so this war was raging in Herod's time, just as it was in the beginning, all through the First Testament, and is still raging in the book of Revelation. Same war, same two seeds. So this is going to be the story of all history. This isn't a new concept. It's just that we're seeing the end of this battle now, okay? It's unfolding before our very eyes. And now back to Daniel, who is shown the kingdoms that are going to rule the earth. All right, these kingdoms are going to cover all of history again. And it starts with Daniel 2:31 through 42. You, O king, were watching, and behold, a great image. This great image, whose splendor was excellent, stood before you, and its form was awesome. I believe that statue was 90 feet high. It was huge. You, O king, he's speaking to Nebuchadnezzar now, and at the end of times, here's what we need to think of today. What was the first kingdom? Babylon, right? When you looked at the statue, Nebuchadnezzar's head was the golden head, and his was the kingdom of Babylon. Now we know that all things are going to return to Genesis like they were in the beginning, right? So are we going to return to Babylon? We're going to see that today. So keep this in your mind, all right? So you are the King of Kings, he says to Nebuchadnezzar, for the God of heaven has given you a kingdom, power, strength, and glory. And wherever the children of men dwell, or the beasts of the field and the birds of heaven, he's given them into your hand and has made you ruler over them all. Now that's wealth, right? That is huge. He owns everything. The Lord's given it all to him. He's the head of gold. You are this head of gold. So this is Babylon, great and powerful. But guess what? It ended. It ended. And Persia took it down with just a few strategic battles. But it basically went down without much resistance at all. Babylon, this amazing kingdom. But after you shall arise another kingdom inferior to yours. This is the Persian kingdom. The Persian kingdom had internal weaknesses and was overspending. Does that sound familiar? Oh. And they depleted their treasury, and they depleted their military. Oh my goodness. Then so it went down. It was gone. The whole kingdom. Then a third kingdom of bronze, which shall rule over all the earth. This is Greece, who came in with amazing power of Alexander the Great. But he died early at the age of 32. He gave his kingdom to his 4 generals who had a lot of fighting amongst themselves. And that, when you fight amongst yourself, you're going to fall. And they did then. And the 4th kingdom shall be as strong as iron. And inasmuch as iron breaks in pieces and shatters everything, and like iron that crushes, that kingdom will break in pieces and crush all others. This is the kingdom that we're in now, and that's about to be strengthened in ways that we're watching. Verse 44, in the days of those kings of the 4th kingdom, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom that will never be destroyed, nor will it be left to another people. It will shatter all these kingdoms and bring them to an end, but will itself stand forever. So why go through all this history, right? It's important to remember that not one of these kingdoms the Lord allowed to rule lasted. They all are gone. And they came exactly as he laid them out. And there will never be a nation or a kingdom whose power lasts until the kingdom of the Lord comes in his power and his glory. We got to keep this in mind, because a lot of people think, well, the pendulum swings back and forth, which it does. But this is not about the pendulum swinging. Could we still see some short good times? Yes, we could. So what should we expect as this kingdom is coming from heaven? What will be happening on earth? Well, there's a word in Hebrew, simanim, which is signs. And everything around us right now is signs that we need to be aware of. Yeshua spoke of these signs in Matthew 24, 6 and 7. And he said, you'll hear of wars and rumors of wars, but see that you are not alarmed. These things must happen, but the end is still to come. Do you know that there have been constant wars since the 1900s? More than 370 wars have been fought since 1900. And that's a war where at least 1,000 people were killed. So there have been more, but at least 1,000 people and up to 50 million in a war. So nation is going to rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom, which can also mean culture against culture or racial group against racial group. There will be famines and earthquakes in various places. So we've seen all these signs taking place, and we ask, why all the wars? Why? Why do we have all these wars? Zephaniah 3:6. And this is the Lord speaking. And he says, I have cut off the nations. Their corner towers are destroyed. I have made their streets deserted with no one to pass through. Their cities are laid waste with no man, no inhabitant. So that's a bad war, right? When nobody's left. But still we ask, why so many wars? Zephaniah 3:7 answers, and this is the Lord. I said, surely you, and he's speaking to Israel, Israel will fear me. When you see all these wars, Israel, then you will receive instruction so that her dwelling would not be cut off, despite everything for which I punished her. But they rose early and corrupted all their deeds. So why all the wars? Did you catch it? They had corrupted their deeds, and the Lord's trying to get their attention by using other nations so that they could see other nations having these terrible problems. And they know those other nations aren't following in the Lord's ways. So the Lord's trying to tell them, see what happens? Look at the turmoil, look at the death, look at the destruction when you don't follow my ways. But it hasn't worked yet, has it? It's like that little wayward kid that you have, that nothing that you do seems to impress him, that he needs to straighten up and follow the rules, right? And the Lord's trying everything he can. So the Lord wanted Israel to mend their ways because of what they see other nations going through. So all the calamities that we're seeing all over the world and in Israel are to wake Israel up. Have you ever thought of it that way? That's what they're for. God wants their attention so that they'll return to him. Matthew 23:39 says, for I tell you, this is Yeshua, that you will not see me again until you say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Right? So we can't expect things to return to what we've always known, because the Lord is trying to get Israel's attention with troubles, because his kingdom is coming and they have to be ready. So all current kingdoms are on the verge. They're on the verge. So there's a process that the world is going through right now, if you're aware, and it's called heat or a root. And it means it's the process of spiritual awakening. Because all of us need to have that heat or a root going on in our spiritual beings, because if we don't know what's going on, we may not be ready to meet the Lord, because why? He's coming for a bride that's spotless and pure. And he really means it. So even the internal conflicts in Israel that we've looked at before are signs of his coming. And that's PowerPoint 1. And it's an interesting article when you read the whole thing, but it really describes what's happening in Israel, if we can pull it up here in a second. And it says, maybe you just got off the proverbial boat and fulfilled that lifelong dream of Aliyah, or maybe you are Israel born and bred. Whenever and however you got here, the message is the same. Welcome to the madhouse. Israel at the moment stands at a precarious crossroads, grappling with external conflicts and internal upheavals that threaten the very essence of its democracy, while at the same time showcasing the very acts which make Israel's democratic ideals sacred. Okay? They know that. This is not me being negative about Israel. God forbid, I love Israel. But there's internal strife going on and conflict between them, exactly as it is in our country today. We have internal strife, and it's growing. And so what happens? Now, I'm going to start bringing in things that are happening today, okay? Now, President Trump, who had been the most pro-Israel president maybe ever, but definitely in recent times, suddenly seems to take a turn. And about a week ago, PowerPoint 2, Trump announces a deal to stop bombing the Houthis and to end the shipping attacks, okay? Trump said the U.S. will stop bombing the Houthis effective immediately. Because he said, the Houthis said, we don't want to fight anymore. And so he said, they've capitulated, so we're going to stop bombing them. Oman, which is the nation right next to Yemen, says it mediated the ceasefire deal between the Houthis and the U.S. However, Houthi attacks on Israel were not mentioned by Oman nor Trump. And the Houthis warn that Zionists should stay in shelters. Why? Because the Houthis are going to continue to bomb Israel, and they said that. Okay. You can't help but notice there's no mention of Israel in this deal. There's no ceasefire for them, nor support. So except the Houthis telling Israel that they should stay in their bomb shelters. That's very scary, as the bombing would continue, and it has. Israel was apparently not consulted, and the Houthis continued to bomb them. Why are the Houthis more dangerous than ever? PowerPoint 3. They are more dangerous than ever because the Houthi, Iran, China, Russia nexus. Thanks to their alliance with Iran, the Houthis have enjoyed extended cordial relations with both Russia and China. Between Iran and Russia, they have been granted an incredible and growing array of advanced missiles that can hit targets as far away as Israel. So their relationships with China, Iran, Russia, make them dangerous. And the Houthis are in Yemen. Now think about this. We know that Yemen is the modern day name for the nation of Teman. Who was Teman? He was the grandson of Esau. He was Edom. Okay? So these deals that are being made now are being made from the people right out of the Bible, from the seed of Satan. That's what we're seeing coming to this grand finale. So Teman, the grandson of Esau, Edom, has this ongoing war with Israel, who is the seed of the woman. We see it with our eyes happening as we speak. Now, before I go any further, I want to say something. I want to be clear that what is being presented today is not to make a political position about President Trump. It's not about whether we love what he's doing, whether we don't love what he's doing, whether we support him, whether we don't support him. Everybody has their ideas. That's not about what we're looking at today. We're looking at whether we agree or disagree with what he's doing. That's not it, okay? The purpose is to look at what is happening in our world and to see the players that are on the stage. Are these guys, right? That's so critical. The world doesn't realize that. We, the remnant, are a very blessed group to understand who Edom is, why Teman is so important, why the Houthis are so important. It's so critical. So we have to look at things that are happening in the world and acknowledge that the Lord created President Trump with amazing skills. He's not like any ordinary man. What man do you know would go to the Middle East and have a conference like he had and bring home $3.5 or $4 trillion out of the Middle East, who have been enemies? He's a deal maker. That's what the Lord created him to be. And the Lord is putting him in office at this time to hasten his coming. And that's why we're looking at these things, not to make a political statement one way or the other about Israel. So then, a little over a week ago, there was the Saudi-U.S. Economic Summit. How many of you watched it on TV? A little bit. Wow. Okay, I'm shocked. Well, I watched it. I watched everything that they had about it because the Lord told me to. And he specifically told me to get to a certain part, which we'll come to. But President Trump went to Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the UAE, and he had meetings with all of those nations. Okay, he flew right over Israel, but he never stopped there. Okay, isn't that interesting? That raised a lot of eyebrows, especially after the deal that he just signed with the Houthis. He made deals, huge deals, with all of these three nations, very, very wealthy nations. And Qatar, I don't know if you realize who Qatar is. Qatar is the nation that provided the monetary support for Hamas. Yeah. That's who Qatar is. He sat with the president of Qatar and made these deals. And Qatar was the home of the leadership of Hamas, all during these battles that we have watched going on in Israel, in Gaza, okay? So this is a dangerous place, and the leadership is dangerous, okay? It's breathtaking, actually. It's hard to really put into words. In Trump's mind, He is bringing peace and security. Listen to those words. To the world. And this is his goal. He's not trying to fulfill biblical prophecy, but that's exactly what he's doing. The political side just sees the political stuff. We maybe just see the biblical stuff, but know that he's in there fulfilling biblical prophecy over and over and over. As you watched that whole thing happen, he said, I want peace and security for the world. I want peace and security for the United States. You know those words. And Yeshua told us about the signs that would be happening in our days. Let's hear what he says in Matthew. We're going to take a little side trip here, but this is important. Matthew 24, 32 through 33 says, Now learn this lesson from the fig tree. As soon as its branches become tender and sprout leaves, you know summer's near. So also when you see all these things, you will know that he is near, right at the door. Okay, now think about this. When Yeshua gave this parable, this midrash really, about the fig tree, there was no New Testament. He was referring to something from the Tanakh, from the First Testament. And so what is this fig tree thing? What is this fig tree? Well, we know now, but they didn't back then. But they knew what he was referring to, so we're going to learn now. And what is this when you see all these things? Well, all what things? What was he referring to? It's not what you think. So this metaphor about the fig tree is what we're going to look at. Sages know he was referring to the Song of Songs. Isn't that amazing? And we're going to go to chapter 2, verse 10, and it says, My love calls to me, arise, my darling. The whole Song of Songs is a book about the Messiah calling to Israel, trying to get her to return, to come to him, to love him the way he loves her. So he's calling to her, arise, my darling. Israel is his darling. Come away, my beautiful one, for now the winter is past. So when the winter's past, what's the season? Spring. That's why he's saying the fig tree is about to bloom. The rain is over and gone. So this is a midrash in the Tanakh that says the fig tree is Israel. And all these things are the conditions for his coming. What would be happening just when he was coming? That's what the Lord was referring to when he spoke in Matthew about the fig tree. So the first condition of his coming was Lecky Lock, and I have it here in English. Lecky Lock means for your own benefit. It means get up and come to me. Come, Lecky Lock. Remember when he said to Abraham, Lek Lekah? That's because Abraham was a male figure, so the words sound different. These are the female. Lecky Lock. Come to me. It's for your benefit. I'm calling you. He's trying to woo her to himself. Israel has to return to Torah, and they have to see their Messiah, and they have to proclaim that they want him. That's why he said, you're not going to see me again until you say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. He's put his foot down. And that's what he's waiting for. He's still wooing them because we have all the problems in the world that are going on, right? But they haven't come yet. So they're going through these hard times. The world is going through these hard times because he wants the whole world to see what's happening. The focus is becoming more and more and more on Israel, isn't it? Yeah. Yes. So there were very hard times during the first redemption. What was the first redemption? The Passover, right? And there are going to be really hard times during this second redemption, which is his coming. Micah 7:15 says, as in the days when you came out of the land of Egypt, I will show them wonders. So too, we're going to see huge miracles, even as we've seen all the hundreds and thousands of rockets and bombs launched toward Israel. They didn't land in Israel. That's a huge miracle. All right, so now we're going to look at a Hebrew word, and it's Mitzrayim. But if you spell it out in English, it's Mitzrayim, and I forgot the Z, so it's a little bit small. But if you look at the first part, Mitzrah, it means they're going to be in war. So just like when they came out of Egypt, when they were in slavery and they were in terrible times under the slavery they were in and crying to God for deliverance, there's coming a war that they're going to be crying out to God for. But they're going to be in war. From a Jewish perspective, they believe that we're in the final stages of Gog and Magog right now. We haven't seen the end of it yet, but it's coming. So they're going to be inside this war. And Ecclesiastes 1:9 says, what has been will be again, and what has been done will be done again. There is nothing new under the sun. So it's all a repeat. And the beloved, the bride, says to the groom in Song of Songs 2:10, or the bridegroom says, arise. That's the word kumi. It's the word that means resurrect. When the Lord kumi ori, arise and shine. So he's telling his bride, look, Israel, I want to resurrect you. I want to raise you up to life, but you have got to lekilach. You have got to come to me to have that resurrection happen. So he's telling them, arise. This is a messianic verse. He's calling for the bride to be resurrected. Remember when Jacob was wrestling with the angel all night? What did he say? He said, the sun is rising. We don't get all these little innuendos. He was speaking of resurrection too, of the sun rising. You know, in the Psalms, it says, kiss the sun, S-U-N. It's a play on words. It means Yeshua. The sun was rising. That was a messianic verse. He knew he had to get up and go. So remember Jonah, who had gone to sleep on the lower deck of the ship. And the men running the ship called to him and they said, Jonah, 1:6-9. The captain went to him and said, how can you sleep? Get up and call on your God. Maybe he will take notice of us so that we will not perish. Then the sailors said to each other, come, let us cast lots to find out who is responsible for this calamity. And now all the world is beginning to blame Israel for the calamities that are happening. They cast lots, and the lot fell on Jonah. So they asked him, tell us, who is responsible for making all this trouble for us? That's what the world is saying right now. What kind of work do you do? Where do you come from? What's your country? From what people are you? Ooh, these are piercing questions, right? So Jonah was a picture of Israel. And he answered, I am a Hebrew, and I worship the Lord, the God of heaven, who made the sea and the dry land. And the Lord is calling them to get up, rise up like Jonah did, and worship him. Proclaim that you worship him. And if they did that, you know what? The wars would cease. The bad things of prophecy don't have to happen. The good things have to happen, but the bad things don't, if we would obey the Lord. Our Torah portion is all about that this week. Okay, Song of Songs, 2:10 and 11. Arise, my darling, come away, my beautiful one. For now the winter is past, the rain is over and gone. So beautiful is Yafati, and it's an amazing word. There's a rabbi named Ram Kal. He lived in the 1700s during the Inquisition. And this is what he says. When Israel is despised, when anti-Semitism rages, and the nations are against Israel, she will be Yafati, beautiful in the eyes of God. And Israel will lek lekah, go to her true place, which is the promised land. That's what God wants them to do. He's yearning for the Jews to come home. So Zechariah 8:2, this is what the Lord Almighty says. I am very zealous for Zion. I am burning with jealousy for her. He loves her. All these things are signs, and they are everywhere. So, at the Saudi Economic Summit, it was historic. It was a huge sign. There has never been anything like it in the history of the United States before. No other president has gone to the Middle East and made deals with nations like he did ever before. Why does this matter? Noticed it was focused on what? What was it called? The Economic Summit was focused on money. Money. But there were, so up here, it was all about money, but don't look at over here what this hand is doing, because there were a lot of political things going on too. But it was about money. So during the economic summit in the Middle East, Trump announced that he was changing the status of Syria. And that is PowerPoint 4. It's a quick video, if you wouldn't mind dousing those lights, please. Oh, Allie, can you see?
Yeah,
Okay.
I've got to get to the right.
This one. Okay. Okay. So this is really breathtaking. He was speaking with, well, I'm going to get to that in a minute. But during this speech, he also said that the U.S. is going to help Lebanon with economic development and peace. He said Turkey's foreign minister and President Erdogan, I don't know if you know Erdogan's history, but he right now is developing what he believes is the final caliphate. And he encouraged President Trump to drop the sanctions on Turkey, which he agreed to do. You heard it with your own ears. Syria, I'm sorry. He agreed to do this and to have a relationship with the new leader, President Sarraj, who was born in the Golan Heights by way of interest. His name was Golani. He's changed his name, but he fought with Al-Qaeda and ISIS. He is a big player with these groups. He's the one that led the insurrection that brought the leader who had been in charge of Syria for 50 years down, and he fled, and he's now living in Russia. And this is the new leader that Trump is making these deals with. Pretty interesting territory he's in. So he's offering Iran a new path. And twice when he talked about this new path for Iran, he said, things are happening at a fast pace. Things are happening at a fast pace. What's he saying? Everything is speeding up. Trump is telling him, we got this deal on the table that we won't bomb you. We'll take your word for it that you're going to dismantle your nuclear system, and we'll come and check and make sure you're doing it. But you got to choose quickly because everything's happening so fast. The days are numbered. We're not going to mess around with this. We'll see. So Trump wants security and peace. Peace and security, financial security. He wants it for the United States and he wants it for the world. 1 Thessalonians 5:3. When they are saying everything is peaceful and secure, then disaster will fall on them as suddenly as a pregnant woman's labor pains begin, and there will be no escape. If you watched this whole summit, those words were used over and over and over. This is where we are heading. And Trump is leading us because he's there to hasten the coming of the Lord. But this was an economic forum, right? One of the news anchors that was there said an hour after the plane landed, they were taken to a room. And he said when he got there, it took his breath away because he walked in and he looked around. And he said he knew all these people in this room. They were the heads of the leading economic businesses in the United States. And they were all there to make deals with the Middle Eastern leaders. And they all did make deals with the Middle Eastern leaders. Okay, so these things are pointing to something that is huge. On leaving, President Trump said that the Middle East countries involved in that summit are investing $3.5 to $4 trillion in America. Plus, the King of Qatar was giving him a new plane worth $400 million, giving it to him. Because our planes are outdated and he flies around in a plane that's 40 years old. And he can't quite motivate America to get him a new plane. So I'm just saying, these are the things that happened. There is a worldwide monetary system that is coming together as never before. And it happened before our eyes, if anybody watched that conference. The deals were made there. These are monetary deals that are going to affect the world. Okay, they're going to affect how fast AI comes on the scene. It's already on the scene, but it's going to develop very, very quickly, and all technology. But this monetary system is what we've got to look at. There's going to be, as never before, money, goods, services, any evil that you can name, and it's called Babylon the Great. Mystery Babylon. That's the economic system that was being built up at that conference. No question, with all the vocabulary that was being used and what's happening in the whole world. That's what we're looking at. We're not making political judgments. We're looking at what's happening. This is what's happening. It's huge and it's serious. Why is that serious? It takes us right back to the Babylonian structure that the Lord showed Daniel. Mm-hmm. And that structure, that Babylonian king, Nebuchadnezzar, the head of gold, came down. And Babylon the Great is going to come down. It says in Revelation 18:1, through 10 selections. After these things, I saw another angel coming down from heaven, having great authority, and the earth was illuminated with his glory. And he cried mightily with a loud voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, is fallen. Listen to this. The kings of the earth who committed fornication and lived luxuriously with her will weep and lament for her when they see the smoke of her burning, standing at a distance for fear of her torment, saying, Alas, alas, the great city Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour your judgment has come. That's what we're seeing built up today. So with all these deals being made with these very wealthy kings, you never saw such opulence as was in these palaces. They were made of pure white marble, which Trump commented on because he said, you can't get this anymore. Do you know how much this cost? This was just a room in one of their palaces. It was breathtaking. Anyway, we're watching the final stages of all of these things come together. So PowerPoint 6 tells, let's see. Oh, by the way, what did Yeshua tell us about the signs of the times? He said, you're supposed to know what they are. That's why we're going through these today. Not for shock value. We're supposed to know the times. And if we don't, shame on us, right? Yes. Okay, so PowerPoint 6, Trump touts economic process in the Saudi Arabia speech. I think it's a hard one to get to. Pray for our wonderful person who runs this. Here we go.
It's a video.
Yes.
It's a video. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, does that look like the...
It's the right one. Yeah.
Sorry, let me see if that's all the way...
There we go. Perfect.
He's talking about how wealthy we are. Okay, I'm going to cut it a little bit short, and I'm going to tell you the rest of his quote. He said, past days of economic misery on the Middle East trip, Trump said his administration's agenda will create, listen to this, the greatest economy in the history of the world. In the history of the world.
All in a matter of weeks.
Yes. Yes. It's speeding up. This is that worldwide monetary system. Listen to the vocabulary. Listen to the nations that he names. He's not kidding. He's there to perform the prophecies of the Lord. Matthew 16:2-3 says, "But he replied, when evening comes, you say the weather will be fair. For the sky is red in the morning. It will be stormy today, for the sky is red and threatening. You know how to interpret the appearance of the sky, but you cannot interpret the signs of the times." He doesn't like that. We're supposed to know what these things mean. So that's what we're doing. So I want to close today with a few more segments, we're going to go a little bit over. I hope that's okay. But I think these things are important. I want to close with some comments from Jeremy Gimpel and Ari Obramowitz on a program called the Israel Guys that comes from Israel. These guys are Israeli citizens. They were born in the U.S., but they're Israeli citizens. They are looking at events through an Israeli biblical lens, okay? All the things we're seeing are about the king coming and about Israel rising to meet him. So it's very interesting to hear their thoughts on these things. And okay, let's go with the first clip. Amen. And segment 2. It wasn't over yet. Mhm. Okay, the third segment. I hope it's not, Okay. Okay, those things are kind of shocking when you hear them for the first time. That's from an Israeli perspective. Those guys are not messianic, but they know the Bible. At least Ari is a rabbi, and so he understands what's happening from a biblical perspective. It's not about politics. It's about we are at the final stages. We are watching the Lord fulfill his word before our eyes on the news. And so no sooner had this summit taken place, and Wednesday of this week, more unbelievable news came out, and I have more video, but I'm just going to tell you for the sake of time that Europe and Canada have issued ultimatums to Israel, and they've said, we're done. Canada, yes. Canada, the United Kingdom, France, Spain, Holland. There are others that they just keep coming out every day now. They're done with Israel, and they're standing up and proclaiming it. We're done. We want that war to end. We don't care what you have to do to end it. The world is turning against Israel right now. We have to be aware of this. Now, why is this especially unbelievable, if it can be any more unbelievable? In June, that's 2 weeks away, there's going to be a UN meeting in the United States where, from the way this video teaching described it, the king of Saudi Arabia, which you saw on the screen, and others are going to meet, and they're going to call for Israel to divide the land, to create a two-state solution. And they've already got it laid out.
It's on Pentecost too.
Yeah, I don't know what is it?
Yeah.
Is it on Pentecost? I don't know. I don't know about that. But this talk had been done. It was passed, but all of a sudden it's resurrected. Now, do I think that'll happen? I don't know. I can't imagine it. Okay, so all of that news came on Wednesday, and I finally closed the computer and started to get ready to go upstairs. And by the time I got up there, I turned the TV on just to hear the TV news, right? And 2 Israeli embassy staffers were killed in a shooting attack in Washington, D.C. at the Jewish. That's all right. And, they were a young couple. He was going to ask her to marry him this week. And, Trump said it's horrible. Killings obviously based on anti-Semitism. Security raised at all embassies. And they're calling at our colleges, which the King of Qatar provides money to and philosophy to, and trains teachers in the things that our children are being taught. Our college campuses are calling for intifada against the Jews. That's anti-Semitism on steroids. And, names that you would know on the news that are Jewish men said they've been told you get security because you're going to need it. You're a Jew and you're known and you're going to need it because you got a target on your back. And so I'm just telling you this stuff because it's happening so fast. It's breathtaking. If you have your finger on the pulse, you can hardly keep up with it. And we need to understand. And, I'm looking at your faces and, it's all serious. It is. We're approaching the time when all these wars are going to be concluded. That's good news. The signs are everywhere. That's good news because it's telling us Yeshua's coming. The world economic system is building. We're seeing the signs. The prophets would have given anything to be alive in our day, right? Because they knew what was next. Yeshua is next. So we have a lot to pray about. We've got to pray for our leaders. That they have spiritual discernment, that everything is moving very quickly right now. More than anything, pray for our families who may not know or want to know. Pray for your neighbors. Pray for believers who don't even want to hear this stuff, or worse, have become anti-Semitic themselves. That is just heartbreaking. But we're heading toward the day when we're going to see our Messiah face to face. And that should put a smile on all of our faces. Amen. So look up, your redemption draws nigh. Amen. And that's our Torah portion for today. Okay.